Courtney's going to be famous and Kurt already is, but unless something happens, they're going to self-destruct. I know they're both going to be big stars, I just don't want to be a part of it. This is what one of the writers from Vanity Fair had to say about the very notorious relationship between Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love. We've got a lot of requests to do a video on Cobain, and so here it is, juicers. The couple were the king and queen of the 90s rock scene, but unfortunately, it wasn't a romance that oozed rose petals and rainbows. Instead, a massive amount of controversy plagued their relationship. Even after Kurt's tragic death, people still pointed their fingers at Courtney and blamed her for what had happened to him.
What do we have to do to not be in the tabloids?
Not go
Can't
out
do
with
drugs.
people who are tabloidy.
So how toxic was their relationship? And what happened to their daughter? Don't forget to subscribe to Rumour Juice because we give our subscribers exactly what they ask for. There seems to be a lot of versions of how and when the couple actually met. According to friends, the pair first met in 1990. Love explained her initial reaction to Cobain during an interview, sharing that she was instantly taken with him. He was super cute, but he carried himself as someone who didn't know that. And that was part of the charm. He didn't know he was a better looking guy than Brad Pitt, Love confessed. And the one thing they didn't do was take things slow. They were officially introduced to one another at a concert in May of 1991. And from that moment on, Kurt was smitten. Nirvana was at its peak, and Cobain was overwhelmed by the newfound fame that came along with his band's booming success. He was already suffering from bouts of depression, and he wasn't sure how to handle all the attention that was on him. When Love was introduced to the singer, she had allegedly pursued him with fierce determination and, according to those close to Kurt, was the one who introduced him to heroin. After just a few months of dating, Love and Cobain decided to say "I do" and exchanged vows in Hawaii in February 1992. Courtney wore a dress that was previously owned by Hollywood actor Francis Farmer, while Cobain wore stylish green flannel pajamas. The wedding bells weren't the only thing that rang quickly. Love was, in fact, already a few months pregnant with the couple's first child. Just like their wedding, their honeymoon was nothing short of unconventional. Cobain took time off from his Nirvana tour, and rather than enjoy a relaxed beach holiday and bathe in their newlywed bliss, the couple bathed in a lot of, well, drugs. Love admitted, "We went on a binge. We did a lot of drugs. We got pills, and then we went down to Alphabet City, and Kurt wore a hat, I wore a hat, and we copped some dope. Then we got high and went to SNL. After that, I did heroin for a couple of months." Courtney added that Kurt never wanted to leave the apartment. He only ever wanted to get high, paint, and play his guitar. He had become so overwhelmed by all the press and attention his relationship with Courtney was receiving. He didn't want to go outside and face the world, so he chose to shut himself off from the world. Cobain and Love's drug use continued until 1992, when they both attempted to get clean before the birth of their first child. They both signed themselves into separate rehab clinics, but their attempts to get clean were short-lived. Unfortunately, after just a few days in the clinics, the couple quickly checked themselves back out and went right back to their bad habits. A month after their daughter, Frances Bean Cobain, was born, Love said she used heroin while pregnant during her interview with Vanity Fair. But she later claimed the publication misquoted her. "I did do heroin when I was pregnant, and then I stopped, and I knew she would be fine. So it was never a concern that our child would have. I assured him I was built like an oxen and could carry this pregnancy to term and not have any problems," Courtney admitted. There's no doubt that the couple had to face incredibly dark times. The documentary about Kurt's life, Montage of Heck, released in 2015, revealed snippets of the sweet and intimate times the couple shared too. In never-before-seen video footage from the documentary, Cobain is seen joking with Love in the bathroom, while another moment captures Love teasingly climbing on Cobain's back while singing a song. However, it is almost impossible to ignore the downward spiral and self-destruction that Kurt begins to go through in the film. In one scene, he suddenly walks out of Frances' first birthday party. In another, he's nodding off while she's getting her first haircut. "Kurt, you don't want your daughter to see you behaving like this, on drugs," Love screams off camera. "I'm not on drugs," Cobain claims. "I'm tired." Friends thought that if there was anything that could draw Kurt out of his own darkness, it would be his daughter.
Black. Black. Ah. Nose. Tastes good.
Cobain considered quitting Nirvana altogether so he could focus on fatherhood. But he chose to stay with the band. And despite wanting to be a good dad and husband, he couldn't kick his drug addiction either. Despite their love for their daughter, the couple's marriage was also unraveling, exacerbated by their drug use. In early March 1994, Cobain attempted suicide in Rome after he sensed the possibility of Love, who was in London at the time, having an affair. Courtney admitted that she had considered having an affair but never actually did it. He must have been psychic or something. I almost did one time and he knew it. I have no idea how he knew it. The plan didn't ever go anywhere. Nothing happened, but the response to it was he took 67 Rohypnols and ended up in a coma because I thought about cheating on him. I mean, Cobain eventually recovered from the coma, but still battled inner demons that led him deeper into a depression. Unfortunately, his problems weren't just with love. They also stemmed from a much darker sense of loneliness. The passion for his music dwindled as Nirvana soared into popularity. He felt like the music he was making had lost all of its meaning. The screaming fans, the fame, the flashing lights, it felt all-consuming, and Kurt felt like he was being swallowed whole by the world around him. The pressure he felt was unspeakable, and it seemed as though no one understood him or really knew who he was. Amongst all the chaos of fame and the substances that came along with it, he felt like he had completely lost himself. He no longer knew who he was, and felt like his purpose had been lost too. Not even the love he had for his daughter could save him. He isolated himself from all those who loved him and dove deeper into the only thing that could numb his pain. His addiction was the only thing in control, and it held a suffocating grip over his existence. Sadly, it all became too much, and Kurt had made the decision to end his pain. After a couple of days in a California rehab center, Kurt told the staff he was stepping outside for a smoke. He scaled the 6-foot brick wall and flew back home to Seattle before his wife could cancel his credit cards. Love hired private investigator Tom Grant to find her husband, while Cobain's mother, Wendy O'Connor, issued a missing persons report. Though his home was searched, nobody thought to look inside his garage or the greenhouse above it. It's uncertain what exactly happened between April 4th and April 5th, except that Kurt Cobain likely propped a stool up against the greenhouse's French doors and stayed inside, doing illegal substances, possibly writing or finishing the infamous note, and finally took his own life. At just 27 years old, Cobain killed himself by a gunshot wound to the head at his Seattle home on April 5th, 1994. He is considered to be the rock star who didn't want fame, the weak, pathetic guy who was taken over by this controlling female and yada yada. It kind of f***ed me up. He's a hard act to follow. I love him and I always will, Courtney shared after his death. Frances Bean Cobain wasn't even 2 years old when her father died. Over the last few decades, she's experienced her own share of drug use. No one could ever imagine what it must have been like for her, forced to trudge through the inescapable fame that she's been given as a result of her parents' destructive relationship. She's become an outspoken supporter of anyone battling addiction and internal demons, connecting with them on social media and attempting to spread compassion. More notably, her frequent use of peace, love, empathy is directly tied to her father's last words in his tragic suicide letter. Frances recently went on RuPaul's podcast, Where's the Tea?, and talked about life growing up with Courtney Love as her mom. She noted that while her mother is a beautiful and kind person when she's on a healthy path, she is also highly self-destructive. Despite that, Frances wants to love and support her, and wants their relationship to be based on open communication and love and truth. The 29-year-old also admitted that she was so bitter and angry and upset and resentful for a really long time with her mother. Speaking of things she had to experience growing up, Frances admitted, some kids were like, I didn't do my essay, and I'd be like, I had to call the paramedics to get my mom's stomach pumped last night. Just a different set of priorities. Thankfully, it seems like Frances and Courtney's relationship is on the mend, and they're trying to put their traumatic past behind them. Kurt's memory will forever live on through his music and his daughter, and fans can only hope that others who are suffering lean on their loved ones and seek the help that they need.